You ever wonder how a single tragic event in one city can just explode, sparking this immediate and really powerful reaction somewhere else, nearly 2,000 miles away? Well, today we're going to dive into exactly that. The story of a shooting in Minneapolis and the incredible ripple effect it sent all the way to Los Angeles. And it all really starts with this, a simple but incredibly powerful statement. He cared about those people and he knew it was wrong. It's a reminder that this isn't just a story about politics or laws. At its very heart, it's about people and this profound feeling that something had just gone terribly, terribly wrong. So what's the connection? How does one shooting in one place lead to protests 2,000 miles away? We're going to walk you through the event that started it all, the immediate legal chaos that followed, and the public outcry that you just couldn't ignore. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so our story begins in Minnesota. It starts with a fatal encounter that would basically set everything else that followed into motion. So, here are the core facts, the ones that really lit the fuse. A 37-year-old nurse, a man named Alex Preddie, was shot and killed during an interaction with federal agents from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. And this single event, well, it became the flashpoint. So in the immediate aftermath, the focus just completely shifted. It went from what happened on the street to what was going to happen in the courtroom. And the central fight became not just about the event itself, but about preserving the proof of what happened. And wow, what a standoff it turned into. First, you've got the Hennepin County Attorney's Office filing a lawsuit, basically trying to stop any of the evidence from being tampered with or destroyed. But the really wild part is that second step. There were accusations that federal officials were removing evidence and snatching cell phones from the scene. That's a huge deal, and it led directly to a judge having to step in and grant a restraining order, which basically put a freeze on everything. Now, while all of this tense legal drama was just getting started in Minnesota, the story had already traveled, shot across the country, creating this powerful echo on the streets of Los Angeles. And we're not talking about some small, isolated thing here. No way. Demonstrations just erupted all over the city. We're talking North Hollywood, downtown LA, Boyle Heights. It just goes to show how people from all these different neighborhoods felt like they had to get out there and make their voices heard. But here's what's so interesting. The response in LA wasn't all one note. In fact, on the very same night, you had these two totally different kinds of protests happening side by side, which really reflects the complex mix of emotions people were feeling. And this slide just lays out that contrast perfectly. On one side of the federal building, you've got what was described as this raw and explicit emotion, protesters verbally confronting officers. But then on the other side, a completely different scene, a much more somber vigil where faith leaders were praying and pleading for change. It's just this incredible snapshot of grief and anger, expressed in two totally distinct ways. So what was really driving all of this? This quote from one of the protesters, it just cuts right to the heart of it. It was about solidarity. It was about making sure that people back in Minneapolis knew they weren't alone, that people thousands of miles away saw what was happening and that they cared. And here's a really crucial point. For these protesters, the death of Alex Preddie wasn't seen as some isolated incident. When they started calling out the names of other U.S. citizens who had been killed in encounters with ICE, people like Renee Good and Keith Porter Jr., they were highlighting what they see as a deeply concerning and frankly violent pattern. So you've got citizens taking to the streets, right? Well, that meant the city's elected leadership had to respond. And the official statement that came out of Los Angeles was, let's just say, direct, and left no room for doubt. This is the statement from LA's Mayor Karen Bass. I mean, it's a very clear declaration of solidarity, not just with the protesters, but with the entire city of Minneapolis. It's an official alignment against the actions that led to the shooting. But listen, this wasn't just talk. Mayor Bass backed up her words with a clear plan of action. She announced she was teaming up with other mayors to look at legal options, and she flat out called the recent raids unlawful and unconstitutional. And she vowed to fight any attempts to, in her words, terrorize our neighborhoods. So this leaves us with a really fundamental question, doesn't it? You have public outrage fueling these ongoing protests, and you have city leaders looking at serious legal challenges. A major confrontation is absolutely brewing. What happens when the authority of a city and the power of the federal government are on a collision course like this?